In Russia, a rap battle is brewing. In one corner, the president of Russia, Vladimir Putin, and in the other, the nation's hip-hop artists. Listen. The Russian president is weighing in on official efforts to crack down on rap music. He said Saturday it is an important part of pop culture, but he also said it needed to be guided by the state. The comments come after the detention of Husky, a popular Russian rapper who you see here. Let's go live to the Russian capital, CNN's. But he also said it needed to be guided by the state. But he also said it needed to be guided by the state.
Vladimir Putin, Vladimir Putin, Vladimir Putin, Vladimir Putin. Messing with Putin, hey, hey, he's a sin.
Gang still Rusin, cause I'm called Putin. Black Mamba.
I am DJ, I don't dance, I'm cool, I'm ice, and I roll the dice.
Мой лучший друг это президент Путин.
One especially disturbing proposal suggests recruiting African Americans with criminal records, giving them sabotage training at camps in Africa, and returning them to the U.S.
They're Husky. He's sort of been at the center of the scandal that's been going on here in Russia. He had a couple of concerts that were canceled, a couple of concerts that were stopped because obviously some of the local officials didn't like some of the lyrics that he has in his songs. And the reason why he was arrested is, I think we're seeing it right now, is because after one of his concerts was canceled due to the fact that local officials didn't like what he was saying, he tried to put on a performance on the roof of a car, and then he was arrested and he was in jail for 12 days. And I think he is out by now. But of course, there is a lot of problem for him and for other rappers as well to actually be able to put on these shows. And it was interesting that Vladimir Putin is weighing in all this because he says that he spoke to a language expert about all this, and this language expert told him that rap is just simply right now for young people a part of popular culture, and that's where Vladimir Putin came up with the fact that he believes that it cannot be banned, but he does believe that the state needs to guide it. Of course, the state here in Russia guides a lot of things in multiple ways. And so now they're trying to come up with a strategy to do it now. And I want to just read to you one quote where he said, "One thing I agree with completely is if it's impossible to stop, then it is necessary to navigate and guide accordingly. But how to do so depends on us." So it looks like they're going to have to come up with some sort of strategy of how they want to do this. Meanwhile, all this keeps brewing. And one of the big issues that Vladimir Putin says that he has with the rap music is that he believes that three things are important in a lot of the lyrics. That is drugs, sex, and of course also protest. Now, of course, protest is a hot ticket issue here, but Vladimir Putin says to him the biggest problem is rapping about drugs and glorifying drugs, and that's the reason why he believes the state needs to find some sort of way to guide rap music and to guide young people, George.
The news coming in just as we come on the air tonight, Ukraine's president addressing the people of his country just a short time ago, warning that Russian troops are moving in on the capital, closing in on Kyiv, saying they could storm the capital tonight. And this evening, the breaking headline from the White House, the U.S. and its European allies now planning to sanction Vladimir Putin directly. Explosions breaking the silence after dark in Kyiv, and tonight it's believed the Russians are already within city limits in the northern part of the capital. And to the north of Kyiv tonight, these images, a government building on fire. And still, Russian tanks and military vehicles moving in all directions, these tanks moving toward the city of Kherson in the south. And the troubling image in a Kyiv suburb, look at this, posted online showing an armored vehicle there swerving and then rolling right over that car with the driver inside. Remarkably, that driver was rescued. And tonight, that call for all men aged 18 to 60 to stay and fight back to save Ukraine. They are not being allowed to leave the country. Ukraine's defiant president posting a video with his top officials telling the world, quote, "We are here," and that Europe said never again, but here we are. Tonight, that news coming in, President Biden and NATO allies freezing Vladimir Putin's assets and those of his foreign minister as well. The NATO chief tonight saying Russia has shattered peace in Europe and we must do more, even if, quote, we have to pay a price. In Kyiv, they are bracing for a perilous night ahead. And we begin here with our senior foreign correspondent, Ian Pannell, on the ground in Kyiv again tonight.
Tonight, as the battle for Ukraine intensifies, Russian troops now entering the capital. Moments ago, Ukrainian President Zelensky addressing his people in a defiant video from Kyiv, saying Russia will try to storm the capital tonight, and that the night will be, quote, tough. Authorities have handed out 18,000 weapons to civilians to help in the fight, and residents were told to make Molotov cocktails. Men aged 18 to 60 called up to fight, not allowed to leave the country. Disturbing new video circulating on social media shows a military vehicle crushing a car. Explosions over Kyiv also posted online, showing just how perilous the situation is. At a Kyiv train station today, gunfire heard as crowds trying to flee the city forced their way onto trains.
Once again, air raid sirens are ringing out across the capital, Kyiv. Although there's been a lull in the fighting for the last couple of hours, the fears are that the Russians have been resupplying and are ready to mount a real attack inside the city.
We watched as troops ran through the streets, taking up positions to defend the city. Alexei Goncharenko may be a prominent lawmaker here, but today he's one more citizen with a gun.
I don't want to fight. I'm not soldier. I'm not professional military man. But I am not ready to capitulate. That's the difference.
The city bearing the scars of war already. An apartment block hit by an unidentified aircraft. As firefighters arrived, Oksana cleaning up the rubble of her wrecked home. She was sleeping when the building was hit. Her daughter singing the national anthem. Through tears, saying simply, "Long live Ukraine." Intense battles are raging across the country tonight as Ukrainian fighters offer stiff resistance to the more powerful Russian forces. In southern Ukraine, around the city of Kherson, Russian fighter jets could be seen coming in low on their bombing runs. Also in the south, video posted on social media from Sumy showing fierce clashes. In Kharkiv, the country's second largest city today, the Ukrainian army digging in to defend as missiles hit and Russian forces advance. And this incredible video of a driver swerving to avoid exploding rounds falling around the vehicle. Casualties are rising, among them 13 Ukrainian defenders on a Black Sea island. They refused to surrender to a Russian warship and reportedly responded with an expletive when the Russians told them to surrender. Tonight, Zelensky says they'll receive the honour of Ukraine. The NATO alliance is activating its rapid response force for the first time in a defensive role in Europe. Up to 40,000 troops will bolster allied countries close to Russia and Ukraine. And 7,000 American troops ordered to Europe yesterday could soon make up part of this NATO force Europe. But none of these troops will be helping Ukraine. As some flee the cities, others seek shelter in Kyiv's subways.
We have a little food and toys. And I hope one day, one night, but if so, we can stay there a long time.
And some are seeking safety in houses of worship. Rabbi Jonathan Markovich and his wife Ina have thrown open the doors of their synagogue. With US visas, they could have fled. But Ina made a promise to a 104-year-old Holocaust survivor.
Will you stay here with me? I fought the Nazis, and I don't know what's coming.
Oh, wow.
She's 104 years old.
So she's lived through the Nazis,
yes.
And now she's afraid of the Russians.
And tonight, a long and bloody battle looks unavoidable.
And Ian Panel joins us live from Kyiv again tonight. Ian, we know the president of Ukraine issuing that grim warning just a short time ago that the Russians could very well try to storm the capital tonight. That other detail that you reported, men 18 to 60 not allowed to leave the country. Families told to take action to make Molotov cocktails to protect themselves. And tonight it would appear that in many parts of the country, the Russians are facing a stiffer resistance from Ukrainian fighters than they expected.
Yeah, I think that's very right. I mean, a senior official telling ABC News that the first 2 days have not gone as well as the Russians expected, though it is now believed that they could try to take Kiev for the final push tomorrow. Again, Zelensky thinking that it could happen tonight, and we have been hearing the distinct sound of battles taking place inside the city. Meanwhile, I think we're seeing early signs of potential talks between the Ukrainians and Russians, but it's likely not talking that's going to dominate the coming hours, but fighting. David.
Ian Panel leading us off again tonight. Ian, we thank you and the team. And of course, please stay safe. And the breaking development late today from the White House, President Biden is now planning to impose new sanctions on Vladimir Putin himself and on Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov. So let's get right to our chief White House correspondent, Cecilia Vega. She's live at the White House tonight. Cecilia, what have you learned?
Yeah, David, this information is just coming in right now. So we know that the president made this decision just within the last 24 hours, that he's doing this along with EU partners, really the show of force and being united against what the Kremlin is doing there in the UK. Press secretary telling me late this afternoon that this is meant to send a clear message about the strength of allies and their opposition to Russia right now. But David, I've got to tell you, the experts that we've talked to say this is largely a symbolic move to sanction Putin personally. It's going to include a travel ban, banning him from coming into the country. Clearly, that wasn't on the agenda anytime soon. As for his money, he's notoriously secretive about that. It's unclear how much he has. It's unclear where he keeps his assets. The White House says they still have more sanctions on the table. But David, in the meantime, as we keep saying every single night, this crisis is just getting worse.
What's up, everybody? This is DJ Radon at TTM Academy. Please like and subscribe if you choose. All right, so now this lecture is about World War III that just started. Very, very serious subject. It's easy to just kind of sit in your bedroom and scratch and try to tune out the world. But, in the past couple of years, I had to start doing, current events and politics and stuff, because all that, relates to DJ education and, hip hop education, rap education, right? We know that Putin's actually into hip hop. You know what I'm saying? Putin's realizes that hip hop is the dominant form of music. And, a lot of Russian youths are into hip hop, like peace to, DJ Chimachine. Shout out to Chimachine. We did a whole, tutorials on the Chimachine scratch. And remember, the Chimachine scratch is like this. It's going, divot what it does, divot what it does, divot what it does. So it's like a baby scratch. It's going divot, and then it's going what it does, right? So it's got half of a 2-click orbit on the first direction, and then it's going divot, a reverse baby scratch, and then what it does on the way back. So it's like mixing two little babies, and one 2-click orbit. Right. So we know, even with Chimachine's crew, the Russian crew battling the executioners. Right. That was a big event. You know what I'm saying? Like, you don't see events like that happening in every country. So hip hop is strong out there, and, Putin knows that. You know what I'm saying? And, he's, had anti-hip hop policies. They even have pointed at Russia, seeking to use hip hop to try to cause dissension in the U.S. So how do we don't know that, DJ Vlad might be on Putin's payroll. We don't know, what I'm saying? Because there's actual, we talked about this in the Grandmaster Jay lecture, right? We talked about Russian intervention in hip hop. So, this kind of continues that, that series of lectures on is there Russian intervention in hip hop? We know Russian hackers are in everything else. You know what I'm saying? We know they're hacking Facebook. We know they're hacking. I actually had somebody tried to, Facebook alerted me that somebody out of, St. Petersburg or somebody tried to hack my account somewhere out of Russia. Right. So we know that, Russia has constantly been trying to use, Psy-Ops, cyber warfare, psychological warfare, all these things. And we know that within hip-hop, there's a lot of Psy-Ops and psychological warfare and things like that beyond just regular shells. Is trying to, get Black Americans to, burn down their cities and stuff like that. Because we know that the Russian media and, given the elections and all that type of stuff, the Russian, not Russian media, I'm sorry, the Russian government was actually, puppeteering a lot of Facebook ads and creating black groups and creating different black things. So all that stuff's real, Jazz. It's not out to lunch. Very, very real stuff.
Tonight, new evidence suggests Russian efforts to meddle in American society stretch beyond elections. Documents seen exclusively by NBC News appear to show another bizarre campaign to sow unrest in the U.S. Russian operatives last year pitched a plot to manipulate African Americans. One especially disturbing proposal suggests recruiting African Americans with criminal records, giving them sabotage training at camps in Africa, and returning them to the U.S. Another proposal, encouraging African Americans to push for independent statehood in the South.
It does not surprise me at all the extent to which Russia would go to undermine our democracy and really target divisions that already exist within our country.
The documents were found in communications between Russians linked to Yevgeny Prigozhin, a catering magnate dubbed Putin's chef, indicted by Robert Mueller for trying to sway the 2016 election. While NBC News cannot independently verify the documents, they were uncovered by an investigative Russian opposition group called the Dossier Center, which, in the past, has revealed authentic material to us.
Our adversary is coming at us. We should expect it to happen now leading up to the 2020 election, and these documents indicate we're going to see it on steroids.
The Russian government has had a heavy, heavy hand in manipulating black conscious circles and things like that, or even just black music, all different types of stuff. And we don't know how far the extent has gone. All we know about is the election stuff. We don't know about hip hop in general. We don't know if Putin's giving DJ Vlad money. We don't know if, if all the industrial gangster rap, prison to pipeline complex is connected with that as well. So we don't know all that stuff. But, so right now it's World War III. Russia, for those that don't know, Russia finally invaded the Ukraine. They had been sitting there for over a week, and they finally attacked now, right? They're finally attacking the Ukraine. People are leaving in droves. If you look at online, you see millions of people trying to flee the city. People are taking their money out of banks, putting it into crypto. And right now, if you see the crypto spiking back up, right when the war is starting, just like when COVID hit, that was the CCP war against the world, the CCP / Euro corporate war against the world, so maybe this is World War IV now and it's the Russian war. But, in the future, they'll probably just wrap this all within World War III, because, China is on the side of Russia, and China is also down with the Taliban. So I'll show that picture, right? We've got, the CCP's down with Taliban, even though they're genociding Muslims. I just did a whole lecture on that. They're genociding the Uyghurs in the west of China. Russia has always been, on some trying to take over the world stuff. So it's like, this is, in my opinion, this is it for Russia and the CCP. We're going to do a lot of lectures on CCP. Shout out to all my former students, former Chinese students. I have students from all around the world, TTM students. I was doing different types of studies, but I'm not teaching kids in China anymore. And, China is, they're telling the kids there that the pyramids are fake, made out of styrofoam. They're telling them all types of crazy stuff. But meanwhile, in Russia, most people in Russia know, not most people, but, the informed community in Russia, people know the pyramids weren't just some giant, they weren't some kind of giant tomb. Like Europeans will generally teach us that, oh, these are giant African tombs that were built by Europeans, but it's like, no. When I first started hearing about, Russian pyramid, Egyptian pyramid technology. It was usually from a lot of Russian YouTubers back in the day. Like now you hear everybody talking about it, but in Russia, mathematics and things like that are pushed harder on the children, and that goes for China as well. China and Russia, both two countries trying to take over the world. They're really pushing their kids hard to try to take over the world. They're like, they call them tiger parents or whatever you want to call them, and now we're here at World War III, but no, the papers are scared to admit it. So right now, if I were you, I would tune into, live. You can see the UK Parliament talking about this live. They're talking about, revoking everybody's passports that are Russian citizens that are living in the UK, that have dual citizenship, and removing their UK citizenship if they are, complicit with Putin. You know what I'm saying? Like if they're on Putin's payroll, if they're any way connected with Putin, Russian journalists, they're revoking passports. So we're officially in World War III. People like, it was clearly China attacked the world, but since the corporations are in China's pocket, they've been trying to cover all this up and, give you fake remedies, snake oil that, people are still getting sick, even with their fake remedies. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, it's clear, and nobody's talking about Wuhan. Nobody's talking about the fact that we know it came from Wuhan. It used to be illegal. This time last year, if I were to say on YouTube, all that, the stuff, the virus came out of Wuhan, it would have been banned. YouTube would be like, you cannot post this video. You know what I'm saying? And so that's proof that the corporations are in China's pocket, and a lot of people are in, Russia's in a lot of people's pockets. They say Putin's worth like 200 billion. You know what I'm saying? He's like an old man. What's he going to do with 200 billion? You know what I'm saying? It's like this European obsession with conquering is very important because, Francis Quest Welsing, has always talked about that. Like, why is it that, Europe has been, it's never more than 100 years until another, they've never gone more than 100 years without fighting. Think about how, it's like World War II wasn't that long ago. You know what I'm saying? World War I wasn't that long ago. World War II was in many people's that are still alive today's lifetime. It's like my Aunt Gloria that just passed away, who's also an actress in my film, Skater Girl, she was born in wartime, and my grandfather, her father, started a record store in Milwaukee right after the war, like in the late 40s. He started a record store in the late 40s. He was selling jukeboxes, all that type of stuff in Milwaukee. He was doing that, So, now we're into World War III. So what's about to happen, I think, is Russia's about to get their ass kicked. And, they're projecting at least 100,000 deaths so far, but in the future. But right now, there's only about 40 deaths so far, confirmed deaths. But, the thing is, that's just confirmed. We don't know really what's happening so far, But with World War II, we know that there was a lot of deaths in Russia, and Russia doesn't care how many people get killed, hundreds of millions, millions and millions, right? But, a lot of people in Europe kind of have this kind of dysmorphia, or I wouldn't call it dysmorphia. It's more of a kind of elephant in the room type of a thing. More of a, they're conditioned to just like look at Europe as like being an island.
Last Saturday, Vladimir Putin held nuclear drills for all the world to see. This Sunday, he put them on high alert.
Dear colleagues, you can see that Western countries are not only taking unfriendly economic actions against our country, I mean the illegal sanctions that everyone knows about, but also the top officials of leading NATO countries are allowing themselves to make aggressive statements with regards to our country. That's why I'm ordering the Defence Minister and the Chief of General Staff to put deterrence forces on high combat alert.
Even his defence minister looks concerned.
He's put his nuclear forces on high alert.
What does that mean, and how worried should we be?
Alerting could mean an increase in general force readiness. It could mean forces from Russia's 12 GUMO, which are in charge of Russia's nuclear arsenal, pulling nuclear warheads out of central storage, bringing them to places where means of delivery are stored, things like strategic bombers, part of Russia's long-range aviation. It could mean a higher alert level of Russia's strategic bomber force. It could mean more strategic ballistic missile submarines being put out to sea, right? Or it could be a larger number of strategic bomber patrols or things of sort of over signaling of that nature.
Russian troops have pushed into Ukraine's second largest city, Kharkiv. But their advance does not appear to be the slam-dunk straight-to-Kiev invasion that they'd hoped for. But they have deployed just a fraction of the military power they have on standby, so that could all change. Sky News has confirmed the presence of thermobaric rockets in southern Ukraine, an especially nasty weapon that the Russians are known to have, which sucks in oxygen to create a massive blast. Videos like this of a Ukrainian soldier swearing he'll never speak Russian again once this war is done, testament to the fact that Ukraine's military will not go down without a fight. Ukraine agreed today to send a delegation for talks with the Russians at a site near Chernobyl on the border between Ukraine and Belarus, but they remained defiant.
The remorseless Russian advance. To escalate or negotiate is now the question. Vladimir Putin ordering a change to the status of deterrence forces, which includes nuclear weapons, because of what he called Western and NATO aggression.
That's why I order the Defense Minister and Chief of General Staff to move Russia's deterrence forces to high combat alert.
And yet, just possibly, peace talks. The day began with Ukraine rejecting an offer to talk in Belarus. But as war rages night and day across the country, the chance of talks now at the Belarus-Ukrainian border. Ukraine's President Zelensky said this morning, we want peace and will talk anywhere else except a country which is attacking us. Ukraine's second city, Kharkiv, overnight, the rolling thunder of multiple missile strikes. Vladimir Putin wants to destroy Ukraine's identity. In reality, he's promoting it. Russian troops on foot in Kharkiv, using armoured vehicles for cover. And here's why. Ukrainian ground forces, they pretty much only have ground forces, engaging Russians with rocket-propelled grenades and a machine gun. Russian tanks carve up the lawns around the city's tower blocks.
These are the Russian troops with a Z on their vehicles. They're stopping in our courtyard. My God.
In Kharkiv, Ukrainian forces inspect a convoy they've destroyed. This came from the Ukrainian Defense Ministry. And a caution here, Russian soldiers are banned from filming, and Ukrainians are not showing images of their soldiers being killed, wounded. And they are, of course, vastly outgunned, outnumbered. 4 days, and this is what President Putin has to show for it. Of course, all these red areas gained by Russia will now move inward, deeper into Ukrainian territory, whilst attempting to join up. But it's here in Kharkiv, the eastern city in Ukraine, which has seen the heaviest fighting in the past 24 hours.
You know, because for me, if troops were invading in Arkansas right now, I'd be a little bit worried. You know what I'm saying? If there was a war going on in Arkansas, not far away from, driving, because people in Europe don't think they're touchable. People in Europe, they've been in this happy cloud for all these years, after stealing resources from the world for centuries. They've been able to live off this bubble, you know what I'm saying, and have, crazy, awesome deals, even with healthcare. I was on the Danger Mouse tour with Prince Po in Europe in 2004, and he hurt his back. We were playing basketball, and actually it wasn't Prince Paul that hurt his back. It was Danger Mouse's dude, Fort Knox, a rapper named Fort Knox. One of Danger Mouse's hype men on the tour, he hurt his back. So he went to the, he called the ambulance. Ambulance picked him up. This was in France. I think we were in like Lille. I'm not sure if we were in Lille or, I can't remember where we were. Maybe we were in Rennes. I can't remember if we were in Rennes or Lille. We were in North France, I'm pretty sure. And so the ambulance came, picked up Fort Knox, took him to the hospital. They scanned him, gave him some medication, sent him home. He was back in a couple hours, and it costed him like $30. $30. It costed him $30 being a foreigner with no health insurance in the middle of France to get an ambulance to pick him up and to get scanned with, I don't know, CAT scans, x-rays, I don't know what they did. They scanned him, definitely, and sent him home with medicine, and it only costed $30. Now, here in the U.S., we know that's crazy. That ambulance ride in the U.S. alone is going to cost a couple of G's. For people outside of the U.S., they don't, people like in Europe, they don't realize how comfy Europe is. Even my homies TTC, shout out to Techie, Queasy, Tito, and Orgasmic. Shout out to the whole TTC crew. They get the government gives them money every month for being an artist. You know what I'm saying? Like here, if you're like, hey, look, I released a mixtape this month and I got a show coming up, or whatever. Government's not going to send you any money out here for being an artist. But in the UK, in Europe, in the EU, there's all types of sanctions all over the EU. Subsidies, not sanctions. There's subsidies all over the EU. So a lot of people don't realize that, the EU is living very comfy, and they're in kind of a bubble, like, oh, we live in this comfy place, and, COVID's kind of disrupted that bubble, but now we got Putin, and the bubble's about to get popped. I've been telling my homie Andre Bear, he's out in the Netherlands. I'm like, yo, man, some years ago, I'm like, telling you, World War III's coming to Europe. Europe can't stay not fighting each other. You know what I'm saying? And, Dr. Phil Valentine has proposed that this might be some type of, this warlike quest that seems like the wars are never stopping in Europe, might have to have something to do with, transgenic, Homo sapien Neanderthalis hybrid fears. Because remember, there was hundreds of thousands of years where humans, Homo sapiens, pure Homo sapiens, were slaughtering Neanderthals. You know what I'm saying? We were living side by side for, people don't talk about that. In the future, that's gonna be in my one of my movies coming up called Planet of the Tamahu. Still fundraising for all that stuff, but Planet of the Tamahu is just gonna be a historical movie about the history of the world and how Tamahu eventually took over into this modern era. But all that stuff is changing. Moving into a different realm now. So now it's officially World War III. But if you look on the newspapers, nobody's going to say that. But if you go into the UK Parliament right now, that's what I've been watching. Go to the UK Parliament and see what they're talking about. They're talking about totally wiping out Russia. As far as, stopping them from, bullying the world. And, I agree. I think Russia and China need to be stopped. I believe countries obviously should have their, own sovereignty on certain things. But, if you got an actual genocide going on and, your neighbors are complicit with it, that's just as bad as Nazi Germany. You know what I'm saying? It's just as bad as, Poland or whoever being right next to Germany being complicit with, Nazi genocides. And what people don't realize is that, like they say that famous parable about the person that, didn't say anything when they took their neighbors and then they came for them. So people in Europe are living in a big bubble where they feel like they're on this island, but when I see Syria, I'm like, damn, if Syria was going on in Texas, I'd be shook. But the average European, they look at Syria like, oh, That's miles away. Even though people can literally drive, you can drive from Syria straight to Paris. You can drive from Syria straight to Beijing. You know what I'm saying? You can drive from Syria straight to Moscow. You know, so it's like, you know, they're not in a bubble. You know, it's like, you know, in America, you know, we've got, I'm talking about the Americas, North and South America. We've got, you know, drug conflicts and you know, more colonialism kind of conflicts going on in some parts of South America. A lot of, you know, economic instability. We've got, you know, the most white. Notice that out of all the nations in Europe and South America, the ones that are giving black people jobs, giving Turkish people jobs, giving non-Caucasian jobs are the ones that are flourishing the most. Like Germany's flourishing, right? It's like, you know, they're in Germany, they're giving more black folks, more Turkish folks jobs than if you go to Spain or Italy. Spain and Italy, you go there, it's a ghost town, it's broke. You know, mass stores closed up. Last time I was in Spain, everything was closed up. And this is before COVID. Man, everything was, you know, there's all types of xenophobia in Europe, you know, because people are always like, oh, you know, racism, that's an American issue. I just had some people in this weird rap group forum trying to tell me, like, stop talking about, you know, stop talking about racism worldwide. You know, blackface and racism, all that stuff is just an American thing and it doesn't apply to us. So stop trying to take American politics, blah, blah, blah. You know, I'm like, nah. You know, racism, colonialism, it's an international thing. Having dark skin is seen as a bad thing due to colonialism all around the world. Any country you go to, you know, when a baby's born, you know, the darker their skin, the less opportunities they're going to have because of systematic racism that's worldwide. You know what I'm saying? You go to Mexico, it's like that. You know, the baby's born blonde hair, they're like, Rubio. You know, they'll be happy. You know what I'm saying? So, like, even though Adolf is gone, his all his propaganda still lives on. You know what I'm saying? It lives on in a lot of stuff. You know what I'm saying? And not just every single country. So all through America, we have a lot of peace out here. Like, there are conflicts going on, but there's no wars going on in North and South America. And you got to think, why is that? And when you do the research and you look at wars, and if you correlate wars with where the Neanderthals were, guess where the Neanderthals were? Does anybody know where the Neanderthals were? Because the Neanderthals never made it to America. They were landlocked. They couldn't build boats. You know, the Neanderthals were basically like more like Sasquatch. You know what I'm saying? But they never made it to the Americas. So does anybody know about that? Know what region did the Neanderthals lived in? The Neanderthals were in the Levant. The Neanderthals were in the Middle East. The Neanderthals were locked from about Turkey to about France. So from Turkey to France, and I'll show the map of that, from about Turkey to France, you know, a little bit farther down to, you know, a little bit of what's called now is called the Middle East. From Turkey to France, that's where the Neanderthals were. And where's the region that has been in conflict for, has always had a war, has never had peace for more than 80 years, that same exact region. You know, and that's what, you know, Dr. Phil Valentine was talking about as far as transgenic, you know what I'm saying? Transgenic, you know, traits, you know, of, you know, aggression and violence. Because, you know, they try to project that on my community. You know, they call me a black male, but, you know, black male means extortion. You know, if you blackmail somebody, you're extorting somebody. So they create all these Trojans and things to, you know, deprecate us and make it look like, you know, the people that are being persecuted are the ones that are the violent ones, when it's actually obviously the opposite, you know? Because most wars in Africa, I'm not saying that people in Africa aren't starting wars, but, you know, most wars in Africa in the modern context have been puppeteered by Europeans, because Europeans still rule Africa, you know, because just like Putin has, like I was saying, Putin has 200 billion. If you go to, you know, Africa, a lot of African countries the same way, where, you know, the presidents and prime ministers and stuff, they're stealing from the people and they have hundreds of millions, they got billions, so now with Russia, I'm thinking like, in my experience, I think what's going to happen is the same thing as Egypt, the same thing as a lot of different countries. Just like how the USSR fell, that was just the first step in dismantling Russia. And what's interesting too is that this is also dealing with slavery too, because this is the Slavic region, because the original slaves were Slavs. You know what I'm saying? Like, the original slaves were, Moors, whatnot. Black folks in ancient times were doing the same things that Europeans are doing now. You know what I'm saying? And the Slavs were enslaved. That's why we call slaves Slavs. So this is a very symbolic war. That it's in the region where slavery was coined. You know what I'm saying? So the Slavs, they've been fighting for freedom forever. You know what I'm saying? Because my homie out of Georgia, not Georgia, America, but Georgia, out there, Georgia in the Caucasus Mountains. Shout out to DJ Grotask. DJ Grotask, he, if you ask him, he'll be like, yo, my people, we've been, we're not rich. We've been persecuted all this time. You know what I'm saying? They'll see themselves as different from, Nordic Europeans, Anglo-Europeans, stuff like that. Obviously they're more swarthy and whatnot. But, this is a very, very important thing because this is World War III that's happening. And, they're going to say it by the summer. They'll be like, oh, World War III in the newspapers. But now, they're just trying to kind of, calm it down. And I think that what's happening is that, Russia knows that this is the end. China knows that this is the end. So it's on. Because a lot of people don't realize the prime minister of China, or not to say the prime minister, the dictator, they both have dictators, Xi Jinping, he was, actually threatening to, he said, we're going to bash everybody's heads on our great steel wall. So that's, he's doing just like North Korea. And, and I also noticed this with people in Japan. I was just having some chat with somebody, and they're like, ha ha ha, this isn't a world war, you're crazy. But they're used to Korea, always making all these crazy threats and never following up on it. But, times are changing, and, people eventually do follow up on stuff eventually, if you look at the history of the world. So that's why you can't, somebody's like, hey, if somebody like North Korea is saying that they're going to drop bombs on Japan or whatever like that, and scare people over and over again, and China's going to intimidate people, try to take back Taiwan, because we see that they, clearly use COVID in China to take back Hong Kong, because before COVID hit right in the middle of all the Hong Kong protests, so in my opinion, the CCP clearly, released COVID from Wuhan, around the time of the, the military Olympics. Nobody knows about the military Olympics games that happened in China. So I think that was November of 2019. And that's about when they released it, because remember, all the diplomats and rich people got it first. Remember, COVID was only really popping in the Iranians were getting it first. Remember the Iranian parliament and diplomats and things like that? They were the first ones getting COVID. It wasn't even like people on the street in Iran. It went top down. People, and when it was in Italy, because remember, Iran and Italy were the two first countries after China. You know what I'm saying? Because remember, the Chinese government, covered it up, and they disappeared the first doctor that discovered it, and he was a whistleblower trying to inform the world. That's why China is negligent, and in their military advances on the world. This is clearly biological warfare. Now we got Russia attacking. So this COVID thing, the Wuhan thing has been a kind of more of a an elephant in the room. But now the Russian elephant just, walked into Ukraine. So people in Europe, I'm telling my homies that live in Europe and China to get out. Get out. I was watching a documentary because like y'all think Russians won't drop a bomb on Europe. Y'all are crazy. Because, if you look at the charts, the Russian population is declining. It's going down. People are leaving Russia. Their whole way of life, their whole infrastructure is imploding. You know what I'm saying? Their only benefit is that they've got so much land, they can sustain themselves. So all these sanctions and all the things like that aren't going to have a big impact on them because they can sustain themselves, just like China. They can sustain themselves. They got so much land. But, we see like we're in the sanction stage, but obviously we're about to get out of that stage. You know what I'm saying? There's already rockets flying. And, people that are from Hiroshima and Nagasaki, I'm going up a hill, pushing a stroller, so it's very difficult and talking at the same time, but that's why I'm panting so much. But yeah, people that are, I was in Osaka, and this old man came up to me, and I think I bought some poetry from him. He had like a book of poetry that he had written, and he was from that generation that maybe he was a kid, and his grandparents or his parents were killed in he was older, so it might have been his parents were killed in Hiroshima or Nagasaki. I don't know which one, but A-bombs are real. Nuclear bombs are real. Russia has a lot of nuclear bombs. US and Europe have a lot of nuclear bombs. Pakistan and India have been challenging each other for years, and that might pop off. So World War III might involve Pakistan and India and Russia and Ukraine and Europe and China. That's huge. That's huge, and that's very, very dangerous, right? That's why all the European people that are in their European bubbles like, oh, we're safe. That's in another land. That's over the mountains. It's like, yo, if the Taliban was in Colorado right now, and then Texas just went to war, and Syria was in California, I'd be afraid over here on the East Coast, because here in the States, we can just drive, cross country very easily. There's not a lot of checkpoints, you know what I'm saying? But, in Europe, obviously, there's a lot of checkpoints, and, obviously tanks can't just drive, in there that easily, but an airplane can fly very quickly. That's why Ryanair is so cheap, right? That's why EasyJet is so cheap, because the distances are so close. So, missiles and airplanes can fly into Europe very quickly, and for all we know, and what's also important to realize is that the things that happen in nature are very similar to what happens in, the political realm or scientific realms. So, for instance, if you have a disease in your body and, you're on the way to kick it and your body's built up the antibodies and, whatever that disease is, say you just got a common cold or something like that, what happens, I forgot what they call this, but they call it like a end flare up at the end, like when the thing that knows that it's being defeated, most, I guess, by your white blood cells or whatever, when that thing that is in your body and it's being defeated, what happens with your body sometimes is that thing that's being destroyed, it'll be like, oh shit, it's almost the end for us, so we got to go really hard and try to, replicate ourselves again and spread the illness, whether it's bacterial, fungal, whatever. And they'll have sometimes it'll be like a last explosion where you see, maybe a bunch of bumps or, things like that, when it knows it's being defeated, So that's the same thing that happens, in this kind of, context with humans. You see people become more desperate when they start running out of options, when they start. So it's like clearly for Russia to make such a bold, insane move, because the UK is ready to, I was just watching, Boris Johnson, and don't forget, Boris Johnson's also a white caste supremacist, right? Because he, I believe he said he calls black people like pickaninnies, and maybe he said something else. But he actually, and don't forget though, and we already covered the former Prime Minister of UK was at the Morris Day Festival with all the blackface people. You know, he took a picture after he was in office. He took a picture with all those people, right? I guess what, Tony Blair, right? And then we got the leader of Canada rocking blackface. So we see that all these Euro elites are coming for, not only coming for black people, but they're coming for each other. And and that's what it goes back to the Phil Valentine theory, and also it's also important. I'm sorry, it's epigenetic. I said transgenics, not transgenetic. It's epigenetics. I always mix up epigenetics and transgenetics because transgenetics is more like horizontal gene transfer. Horizontal gene transfer is like a mosquito bites you. Some of the DNA in the mosquito actually goes into your body, and then your body either destroys it or adapts to it or. So my battery went out, and I was talking about epigenetics and Dr. Phil Valentine and this looming threat of World War III. I personally feel it's like World War III in the metaphoric sense. I'm not promoting anybody to, any type of violence. I'm for peace. So I'm anti-war. But it seems like this, provocation is very, pretty much, it seems like it's that type of a scenario. So, it's a thing that people are talking about, news is talking about, and the UK Parliament seems pretty charged. They're talking about, very serious things. And, as far as it seems like it's kind of like an end game for the USSR, collapsing into Russia, and possibly Russia, in my view, it's probably going to be more like China and Russia and Afghanistan getting chopped up into, places where people have freedom. Because if you look at the CCP right now, that woman, they just found the woman, she had been sold like 4 times. She was chained in a room and forced to have 8 babies, and they made the guy famous on TikTok in China. People still living in medieval times. So I see a lot of my socialist homies that are like posting posts that are like pro-China. I'm like, that's crazy. Y'all don't realize there's a large percentage of the population still eating rats. Like I've seen, little girls holding rats, in China. Like, it's crazy. I'll put that picture. It's horrible out there. And they got the Uyghurs in the West. We just did a whole lecture on that. But so this whole, as far as the Wuhan, provocation by China, and them, I was talking about Xi Jinping, talking about smashing people's heads against the wall. I'll put up that quote. He literally said that. That's pretty extreme, for North Korea. People take it as like a joke. So, like a lot of people are, totally desensitized to the whole thing, the looming threat of war, So, I feel like people that are in Europe, I was talking about the bubble. The bubble is a very serious thing. And that's what, it's very serious for them to say in the news, like Eastern Europe, war in Eastern Europe. And there's always been like conflicts, but, there's never been World War type of a conflict where it's like, okay, obviously NATO and stuff is getting involved first, and people are starting with sanctions. But, after the sanctions, it's like, what Britain was just talking about, the UK Parliament. If anybody knows what that scepter is, that giant golden scepter that they had in there that they were just talking, please let me know, because I don't know what that scepter is about. I was like, what's that giant, there's a giant golden scepter, like at the end of a table in the middle of the Parliament. I was just curious what that scepter is. Kind of interesting history that I don't know. But so this seems pretty serious. The Russian billionaires have been, part of a lot of companies in the U.S. So they're a strong lobby. And in the UK, their parliament, they're already talking about, revoking passports from journalists that are, you know, dealing with Russia, like, you know, people that have dual citizenship. So it's like those with dual citizenship with the Russian status, the parliament was just suggesting live today. I saw them saying, like, you know, let's revoke their dual citizenship. You know, they're down with Putin type of a thing. And, you know, so, you know, the PSYOPS, the Russian PSYOPS and the Russian propaganda and all that stuff has always been one of their strongest factors. You know what I'm saying? And you know, even that gets into the more esoteric type of stuff when people talking about, you know, what the debate whether remote viewing and things like that are real. And as I was mentioning before, you know, like in Russia, they push the kids a lot harder, just like in China with the tiger parents. You know, but obviously the society it needs to be totally rearranged out there in China and Russia, because they're both, you know, really provoking the world. You know, you see there's a lot of cases in Africa where they're starting to push out, you know, a lot of the Chinese racism because, you know, people, regular people outside of China aren't allowed to own land in China, you know. And, you know, it's very, very serious. They're just banning black people in McDonald's. You know, so to me, that's like wartime stuff, you know. So it's a very, very horrible thing. But yeah, I'm saying peace. You know, people shouldn't be shooting each other. And, you know, most likely, you know, people are talking about the hard drive stuff and, you know, passwords. They may be trying to snatch up a bunch of crypto passwords. You know, there may be billions, you know, in crypto that they could take. You know what I'm saying? If they retake Ukraine, you know, are they just going for the whole region, or are they going for the whole Ukraine? That's the question, you know. So it's like, given that China is down with the Taliban, you know, China clearly, you see them shaking hands with the actual Taliban in Afghanistan. You know, it's kind of a you know, very bleak scenario, especially when you given how crazy North Korea is, you know. And if North Korea were to join them, which it seems like China and North Korea have always had a good partnership with each other, you know. A lot would say China is more like a very rich North Korea, but their richness gives them the ability to make some public relations and business lobby propaganda that you know, people just kind of dismiss it, like the whole Wuhan thing, you know. You used to not be able to talk about Wuhan on Facebook, but now you can talk about it, you know, because that's actual fact, you know. But yeah, it's deep. So, you know, I've been warning friends, you know, for a long time that, you know, Europe, they say, usually only has cycles, you know, and doesn't stay out of war it's always at war. You know, Eastern Europe's been at war for a long time, but as far as like world wars and stuff like that, who knows what they'll call this in the future. But, you know, it seems like, you know, most people are like, hey, this seems like it's that, you know, it's a very, very serious thing, very, very serious day. You know, they're not literally saying it yet. They're not allowed to print it yet. But, you know, it's pretty serious things happen, especially since Kiev is getting hit, you know. It's very, very serious. But, yeah, so, you know, I think what needs to happen is, you know, more of the Egyptian style thing where people just get out in the streets and, you know, then, you know, Putin just kind of puts down the power type of a thing, you know, and let, you know, equality prevail over there, because it's just a bunch of like billionaires running everything. And like I was saying, my ex-girlfriends from there, one ex-girlfriend from Russia, you know, it's like she was telling me it was just crazy out there. She's like, yo, it's crazy. You can do whatever you want. You know, gangsters run everything, you know. So it's like kind of like, you know, New York in the 70s kind of vibe, you know. But I was like, wow, it's like that. It's like, yeah, because after the, you know, USSR fell, now it's like, you know, mobster run, you know. So it's like, she was saying it's just kind of like, it's kind of lawless out there, you know, kind of anarchistic in Russia, you know what I'm saying? you know, and a lot of people don't realize too that, you know, in Europe, you know, all over Asia, you know, they got brothels everywhere. People are walking about, you know, it's like Germany, you know, dudes are probably most likely way more unfaithful. They're just walking by brothels all day, you know what I'm saying? Like the level of the U.S. is a lot more conservative, you know what I'm saying, out here. And, you know, we are the beacon of, you know, truth and justice, I would say, you know, as a you know, an American. You know, so it's like, as far as, you know, black civil rights movements, you know, equality type of stuff, we've coined the market and all that stuff. So, you know, nobody's perfect, and a lot of people are coming at the U.S. like, oh, look, U.S. has done all this stuff, but it's like, no, this is a real provocation. Everybody said, please don't do it, and Putin said, no, I'm not going to do it, and he did it. You know, and you saw that giant hole that was in the nursery, you know. Maybe that was propaganda. They said that was fake, but it's really happening, and Biden's really saying that it's happening. You know what I'm saying? Biden's actually like, you know, everybody's at the sanction level, you know, but you know, they said that Germany cut off like, I think it was 11 billion for like an oil pipeline that's supposed to happen, and that just totally. You know, they're cutting off a lot of things. The stock market, I wanted to talk about that too. The stock market since we're talking about TTM wave analysis all the time, the stock market in Russia is dropping right now. You know, I'll show a picture of that. The indexes are dropping. People are freaking out. So obviously, you know, I don't play cards. I'm not a gambler. But people that gamble know that, you know, when people are doing something that stupid, like why would Russia do something that stupid? Shows that they might be, you know, they might have had a lot more severe COVID losses. They might be emitting, just like China. You know, China says only 3,000 people died from that out there, you know. And who knows? Russia might have had even worse because, you know, it really hit Iran for the worst first. You know, and that's right over there. You know, and it was hitting Iranian diplomats first. Like I was saying, that, you know, if you look at the history of it, you know, I was telling people about it in February 2020. You know, people thought I was just being like on some conspiracy theory or something, but it really turned out, you know, being a pandemic. You know, I was talking about the pandemic in February because, you know, I had a lot of students in China. You know, I had students from Wuhan, you know what I'm saying? And I had students from all over, you know, different parts of China. And, you know, so it's like, you know, TTNs all around the world. You know, so it's a very, very interesting subject. So now it's not a subject where it's like, hey, the whole world has to deal with. It's already unrest in Canada. So who knows? Putin might be like thinking he might take Canada. You know what I'm saying? That could be the next thing, you know? And does Biden have the balls to try to stop Putin from taking Canada? You know? It's like, they're right there. I'm sure they thought about it. I'm sure they have all types of essays. People, you know, how it works in colleges and stuff, universities, they have the students submit some type of like 10-page, 30-page, million-page dissertation on like how Russia can, you know, colonize Canada and, you know, for a future takeover of the rest of America and stuff like that. You know, it's like my mom grew up with the like we will bury you stuff that the Russians were, you know, formerly Soviet Unions were pushing. And, you know, that's crazy. That's traumatic for the, you know, she said that was traumatic for her when they were having to, you know, run underneath the school desks, you know. And they still might have had some nuclear drills when I was a kid, but I don't think they really, it was always fire drills, you know. So it's like fire drill, nuclear drill, that's supposed to be the same thing. But, yeah, we should be doing the fire drills right now. Everybody should be, this is the time to be doing fire drills. You know, fire drills are definitely, you know, because as we've seen in the past with Chernobyl, as we've seen with Fukushima, there's a lot of stupid people in the world, you know, and there's got a lot of, like, Russia has been very irresponsible in the past, and it's been a constant demise, you know. So like I was saying, Nigeria is actually bigger than Russia now. Not in land mass, but in population. But it used to be the other way around. And Nigeria is actually about to catch up with the U.S. at about 500 million is what they project. So, you know, that's really out there because it's like Russia's population is definitely under 180 million now. It's like, I don't know, 150 or something. And, you know, it's going down. People are leaving Russia. You know, people are leaving in droves, and they know that their society is, you know, run by like gangsters, and it's kind of anarchistic out there. And people don't get, you know, most people, like, I don't know anybody that like owns land in Russia. Maybe I know one cat. You know, I got a lot of different students, but you know, it's in Europe, it's more of a feudal system. You know what I'm saying? Most Europeans, you know, the farmers already got all the land, and nothing's really changing. So people are in the cities, same old apartments. Unless they build new apartments, you know, the rent's always rising anyway, so they can't own land. You know, most people I know in Europe don't own land, whereas America, I know a lot of people that have land, you know. But in China, people don't even own land, and they do. It's usually one of the Fabergé apartments that falls apart after a couple of years, and it's more of like a stock that they trade. And people don't realize it, thinking it's like a real home. You know what I'm saying? A lot of that's what's, you know, happened with the Chinese collapse in their whole business system. You know, their whole architectural, their biggest firm just collapsed, you know. So the Russian stock market's collapsing and the Chinese stock market's collapsing. So, wow, this dog just licked me, this little poodle. But that's funny because I need to go back to epigenetics. And I usually try not to let dogs lick me due to horizontal gene transfer. You know, horizontal gene transfer is like a mosquito bites you. You know, its DNA can go into you and affect your DNA, change your DNA. And even a dog bite, you know, or a lick. You know what I'm saying? It can actually affect your DNA. But epigenetics is different. That's what you pass through different families to your DNA. And that's what we're talking about as far as the region of violence being in correlation with, where, you know, where from the Levant to Portugal, you know, being in correlation where, you know, that's where the Levant from the Neanderthals were in the Levant, and all the way to Portugal is where they were landlocked. They never really made it beyond there. You know, people don't talk about that. They weren't in America. They weren't, you know, Bigfoots and new things like that might be something totally different. It might not be, you know, I've heard it was more lemur kind of stuff out here. But as far as the actual Neanderthals and that specific, you know, species, you know, we'll talk about more of that in the future. But, you know, Philip Valentine's theory is very, very important, I think, to really recognize about epigenetics. So that's the science of, you know, they figured out in lab mice that when they presented them the smell of roses, they zapped these mice. They kept zapping them their whole life, so they didn't like that smell of roses. And then the mice's babies passed that on, that fear. They didn't even zap them, and they would, you know, have the roses smell, and they have an aversion to it. You know what I'm saying? And they program that smell, that aversion to that smell into their DNA. So if they're able to program that, you know, into their DNA, then you know, that's called epigenetics, where it's going through different generations. You know what I'm saying? So the mice, they were able to you know, pass that on to their children. So when people talk about trauma from the past, somebody's trauma in their life can be passed on to their children. You know, they just prove that one sense, that smell, could be passed on. You know, we don't know about all the other senses, but they did prove that smell can be passed on as far as epigenetics, you know. So now, can that epigenetics really be causing, you know, certain groups to have different body tolls than others? You know, like if you look at, you know, Stalin versus, you know, all the people that have the highest body counts, you know, like the Congo, King Leopold, you know, he has really, really high body count. You know, Idi Amin was up there, but, you know, if you look at Idi Amin, might be the biggest, you know, that we know. And, you know, statistically, that's very small when you compare it to King Leopold and Stalin and, you know, all these other wars and all those body counts. Like, they have charts of that. So I'll put up the charts of that, you know. So, yeah, my cousin, who actually just passed away, was really worried when Afghanistan took over, not long ago, this past fall, because he fought in Afghanistan. He actually fought in Afghanistan, so he was worried about that. He was very, very worried about the Taliban taking over. He thought that they might come for him in America. And a land invasion of the U.S., that's a scary thing that people should be talking about now. Should everything from Russia be cut off? Because their market's already dropping. And should people start revoking passports like the UK is talking about? UK is really talking about even more out there stuff. They're even talking about going just beyond NATO, and because it's I guess when they would officially call it a world war would be when there's troops that aren't NATO troops from a bunch of countries maybe. So it's not NATO, obviously the countries give those troops to NATO, but it's those are just NATO troops. So it's just a local conflict, it's not a world war. But, after this whole Chinese biowarfare thing, it's weakened the world in a lot of different ways, and we don't know how much, Russia was weakened from that, So this seems like a very, very desperate thing. Why would they want to disrupt world peace like that, And it's scary when you look at all those charts where they have, I'll show the mathematics of that. They have these charts that show the history in chronological order on some cartography stuff on the map of the world, and it shows where all the test nuclear bombs and real nuclear bombs have gone off, and it shows that. And when you see that, it's whoa, it's they usually test them out in the deserts or way out in islands and stuff like that, but it shows which country is doing it and the flags, so it's there's no African countries with those, it's only Nordic and Anglo and then India and Pakistan, I was saying, is another issue, that could inflame, you know what I'm saying? Because it's the Taliban already are running in Afghanistan, so that's totally, not you can't really consider that a real government, I'm sure that's probably how the U.S. looks at it, it's you can look at anybody doing that as not being real, but we're going to see what happens, if other countries in Europe are going to get into it, like Germany, and the people that are so close. That's what I'm saying. Everybody I know that's in Europe is in this bubble that it's nothing. I'd be shook if something was popping off in some other state in the U.S., something crazy was popping off, It's people might have been shook when Ferguson was happening in states next to Ferguson, But that's not shook shook like what's happening now with Russia, and bombing they bombed the children's elementary place, It was a daycare or something, but it was after hours, so nobody got hurt, But that might be I'm actually probably going to be painting that in the future, Most of my stuff is my new stuff, oil stuff is actually more hyper pop art, historical, so when compiled together, it's different histories, giving information to people, art that's actually, because most art is about the person's ego and about themselves, and you have to interpret it. But art that's not meant for interpretation, but art that's educational, and it's meant to, be downloaded or, used. The tools, different tools, things like that. So with the Matrix series and all these different series, I'm creating different tools to help people, in different ways, and being able to actually, drop the BPM. The BPM protractor that's coming out soon, actually, that's been something I wanted to do for a long time. So, this next decade is going to be, we're going to be dropping physical things. Everything's been for free for the past 10 years. I've been doing free TTM Academy as a free DJ Academy. So this is all free. You know what I'm saying? And I gave the Matrix out free. People can donate to posters and stuff if they want, but that's been going really well. Shout out to Cut and Paste Records, for carrying the posters. That's been a very, very cool thing, and shout out to, all the Matrix poster supporters, over the years. Matrix posters are, even I was surprised Richie Roughtone used to have one on his wall. He took it down though, But, I'm actually going to be bringing back my grandfather's record store, actually, because my grandfather had a record store called Bronzeville Records. So I'm going to bring that back online, like Bronzeville Records, because, it's like Bronzeville Records since, like 1948, So my grandfather, my father's father, he started a record store after the war in the late 40s. In the 50s, and he was selling jukeboxes, and I didn't even know about that, and I always been into, electronics, DJing and stuff, whatnot, computer programming, beats, whatnot, music, composition, and I didn't even know, and, I didn't know my dad liked music either, my dad passed away when I was 3, so I didn't know what he was like, really, can't remember, but, yeah, so this whole thing that's happening now, my aunt, his sister was actually from that era, born in that era, born in the 40s, and she just passed away. As I was talking before, the power went out, and that was real for them, like going through a world war like that, and a lot of people think it's a joke, and I just saw some jokes out of Japan. There's this whole, joke campaign that's like back in Russia, all these memes and stuff like that. And the Russians are on that. The Russians might have created all these memes, That's why I've been questioning for years whether Russia's, actually involved in a lot of the debauchery and, insane stuff of hip hop that's been going on. You know what I'm saying? Because they know if the youth are into the hip hop, they think they can make America, crumble from within. And in a sense, a lot of hoods in the U.S. are crumbling from within, because it's like the music is like, the R. Kelly stuff, and they're getting the people following the Lemmings, and their, Pied Piper stuff. And, they're basically, putting all this debauchery on the radio, and every word has mad cusses. It's like 100 bleeps per like hour, and it's like that's going against the parental advisory codes, it's like that stuff needs to be reinterpreted and updated and have anti-gang stuff put in. So at the United Turntables Guild, we're going to be writing letters, on some stop the violence stuff. I was just saying how this Rashad Jamal cat was like trying to come for me and online, and I'm posting some NFT nerded out stuff, and he's like coming at me in some let's fight, where you at, I know what city you're in, type of stuff. It's like that's craziness, and it's there's people that are happy to see people going against each other, and stuff like that. So it's like obviously the violence needs to stop. But what's interesting when you see a lot of the Ukrainian people that are fighting and the youths that are in the military, a lot of them, they look hip-hop. They look like hip-hop cats, I'm like, dang, yeah, these guys look like, some look like they DJ too. Some look like, I feel like, there's that in Russia too. Like I was saying before, shout out to Chimichin, hip-hop's big in Russia, but, the government's still against, black music taking over, Putin is very anti, Russian Asian and Russian black, if you're going with the original families and stuff like that, before they took over, Russia's always trying to take over more stuff, and, even with all that land, they're collapsing from within, and that's what's interesting. If you go to different cities in America, if there's not the original people like, Mexican people, original black folks, the city's not popping. It's in the middle of nowhere. And they try to say the other way around, like white people build it up and then we move there. But it's actually, we're building it up. We built America and are still building America, and never really changed, And, but with Russia and China, things could really change, It could be a very big change where they have to get chopped up in the future as far as, broken down into different states or, things like that, different countries, a lot of those countries obviously might not be able to support themselves, but, maybe they make some new country, like China, that China's is a mess. It's like, the nice cities look nice, but that's like 20 million people, but, regular million cities with 5 million people, 10 million people, those are regular cities. There'll be, there's people live in medieval times, with troughs and, it's like anywhere in America you go, even to the most hood, people still can flush their toilet. They got a regular toilet, there's a plumber that can possibly fix it. Not a lot of people don't have plumbing in the U.S., even in the hood, But, so a lot of Europeans don't realize, like, they're in this bubble where they've been living off of colonialism for so long. They, are used to having all these subsidies that aren't coming from from that. So it's like once Africa starts creating their own resources, using their own resources to manufacturing their own resources. I meant manufacturing, not creating, because they have the resources already. But, they're just extracting, they're sending things to Europe for processing where all the money's made. And then all the business work stays out there and, they get pennies from it, So, as that shifts, different leaders come in as Europe loses more power. Russia has always been like a friend of Europe. They're happy, they're scared of Russia, obviously with the NATO thing, but they're happy that, Russia is, not run by like Middle Eastern people or Asian people. I think they'd be a lot more intimidated by Russia if it was an Asian Russian, Okay, so basically, if you're going back to what I was saying with Dr. Phil Valentine, genetically, they found that, there's differences. People, the Neanderthals traits can cause like, certain types of diabetes. Certain types of diabetes are led to that, because a lot of people try to be like, diabetes is has nothing to do with weight or what you eat, but it does. People, they try to, the companies are constantly lobbying, and it's an epidemic in the U.S. But back in Europe, it's like people are living in this bubble, like everything is same with Japan, like they take North Korean threats as a joke, but I take that stuff seriously. If I hear North Korea making threats, that's like, because remember that North Korea was making that threat to the U.S. and then that big town years later, there's this big town in the U.S. in the middle of like Texas. It's like it was like a big factory explosion or something, but maybe they figure out some little thing where they can, bounce something off the moon and they, can spark a little tiny spark in a some factory or something, Maybe they figure out something like that. Who knows, But it did come after their threat, And, in China, a bunch of people just passed away in a bunch of these, in a tunnel. The tunnel filled up with water really quick and like maybe 5,000 people passed away and the government was like, 10 people died and stuff like that. Same like I was saying with the Wuhan warfare thing. A lot of people, that was their fault. You know what I'm saying? They made it, they let it out, but it doesn't necessarily, the question what they're trying to find out is it accidental or was it on purpose? Was it, did they let out, was it like, somebody threw the animal in the dumpster and somebody was like, hey, I can make some food out of this, animal, because that's what they do out there. They sell the food out there, and like I was saying before, in the news right now, there was a woman chained up in a chain, and they made her have 8 kids. This guy, she got sold multiple times, and she was in slavery, and the government tried to cover it up in China, so CCP is always, covering up stuff, and the people are, for it and stuff, but the people are afraid because in China they're listening in on the people's, things, their video devices inside their house, and even domestic violence stuff. They don't. The government lets, women aren't free in China, So to all my former Chinese students, I would say just like I said, homies that are living out in China, I think people need to get out of China, because they were banning black folks in Guangzhou. In Guangzhou, they were banning black folks in the McDonald's. You know what I'm saying? Anytime they're banning black folks in the McDonald's, you know what I'm saying? Saying you can't buy land here, you can't, even stay in this apartment here. You know what I'm saying? And then you go on their New Year's show. Let's look at the New Year's thing. They're always they've been annually now doing the B-face stuff, blackface stuff. I gotta say B-face now for the algorithms. Can't say it too much. And that's popular all over Asia. And what I think is happening is, the Americanizing of the world is happening. I think America is the future of the world. And eventually people are going to have to have, a right to bear arms and things like that, like America, But they're not ready for that. You know what I'm saying? People in a lot of countries, they're not ready for that yet. It might take people 100 years to be ready for that. Who knows? They might never be ready for that. You know what I'm saying? They might not ever be ready for that in Russia. And that goes back to the, Phil Valentine thing I was talking about as far as the epigenetics. I was saying transgenetics before, but I was saying it wrong, because I was thinking horizontal genes transfer, but that's a whole other thing. And there's also microchimerism. Microchimerism is when a mother has a baby, the DNA from the DNA from the baby stays inside the mother. And that's microchimerism, in the chimera, the chimera is the multi-headed, usually it's like a kind of a lion, like a bird's head, type of thing. But a chimera could be a lot of things, just like a legged and multi-headed animal, a hybrid, you know what I'm saying? And a lot of times hybrids don't work out, maybe it's too many legs or whatever, you know what I'm saying? But sometimes hybrids are, working out. And now as we've seen, as far as that theory of the epigenetics, can epigenetic fear, lead to warmongering? Can epigenetic, because as I was talking about before, humans and Neanderthals were fighting for, hundreds of thousands of years. You know what I'm saying? Good over 80,000 year overlap till the end of, because humans, in the 90s, they told us that the Neanderthals came after humans, and then they try to flip it and be like, nah, humans are younger, Neanderthals came way earlier, humans are only 100,000, but now we've proven that Morocco is the oldest confirmed now at 300,000 years, maybe a little bit more, like 307 or something, but about 300,000 years ago is the oldest confirmed human bones in Morocco. But if you go to like all these blogs, they're still posting 100,000 years in Ethiopia, you know what I'm saying? And, there's stuff that goes way back. You want to look into Michael Cremo, Michael Cremo and, his forbidden archaeology stuff is a very, very cool series of lectures as far as the stuff that the museums won't accept. And that even if the person that's that's surveying the land actually, like the actual archaeologist or whatever is actually saying a particular date, like if they find something, they say it's 2 million years old because of where it's at in the rocks, they got to go by with that. Because a lot of times, the farther back you go, carbon dating doesn't work. So if, carbon dating doesn't work way back, then, we have to go by, sediment a lot of times and sedimentary stuff. And they found humans in super, super old sediments, and they won't, acknowledge that stuff. They even found a person in sediment with with rock sediments over them. So that's proven that they didn't get squished farther down into a settlement, or there wasn't a rift that pushed them down or something like that, or they sunk into a lower sediment, because that's what they'll try to say. It's like, oh, maybe they sunk into that settlement and they were really from a higher settlement, But all that stuff, there's thousands of pyramids in the Americas that still haven't been, uncovered, and those things are gonna get uncovered. If I was a billionaire, I'd be trying to uncover the pyramids. But notice how Elon's never like, hey, let's find out what's in all those pyramids there. You know what I'm saying? They know what's in there. They probably been in there. They probably just leave jungle around it. They probably have some secret little paths. You know what I'm saying? They probably got that stuff cleaned up already. But maybe not, because there's a lot, especially with the mounds in America. America, we have a lot of mounds here. My people come from the, Mississippi Delta, civilization. Very, very ancient. The Washita tribe actually got, recognized by the UN, I believe. And, that brings it back to UN and NATO and all that type of stuff. It's like, people in Russia want a better life, and I think secretly a lot of people in Russia would be happy for Russia to fall and the West come in and things turn more like the West. I think most people will want, Westernization of, looking at Americanization as Westernization, of the East and of Europe, But and I think that's what the UK wants. The UK wants to be like the US, and be powerful again. But obviously, Nostradamus actually talked about the queen being the last queen, the queen of the millennium. Maybe, I don't know if he said that, but it was something he was saying when the royal family was ending. I had this Nostradamus book, but I let this cat borrow it, and he never returned it. This Nostradamus books, But yeah, he was talking about, this being the last, of the family and stuff like that. A lot of people say, this is a big shift that's happening, because it's like, why would Russia be this desperate? It's like, why would they be this thirsty to actually, the whole world's like, no, don't do it. I mean, they're already having smaller conflicts. Why are they going into new areas? And a lot of people think it might be crypto. There might be some wallets, some hard drive wallets or passwords, they can roll up in, right now they might be rolling up in Kiev or rolling up all over, because they might be sending, agents all into Ukraine right now. We don't know what's happening. We see people, in droves, going down highways fleeing. There's people fleeing the major cities. So it's getting real in the Ukraine, And, Russia is capable of, they call it, like in the Matthew Broderick movie, thermonuclear war, and definitely check that out. I've been studying 80s movies for years, because now it's 80s futurism that's been happening. There's a lot, even Stranger Things could be considered 80s futurism, and even just like not Tank Girl, but more like this movie with this guy with this power glove. I forgot what it's called. But there's all these indie movies that are doing all this kind of 80s futurism kind of stuff. But even shout out to Kavinsky. Kavinsky's album's dropping. But I don't know him personally, but Pedro's the homie, and DJ Mehdi, rest in peace, was the homie. I was supposed to do a video for Mehdi, and he was at a party and fell through his own sky window, and he passed away. So that's very very sad thing about Mehdi, DJ Mehdi. And shout out to Justice also. I remember I was chilling with those cats at Max Fish way back, when Justice was really popping. I was chilling with them in Jaff Punk too at and A-Track didn't say anything to me that day. A-Track was there. I looked him dead in the eye. Me and A-Track had dinner at IHOP when Clever won. Clever's my homie from Atlanta. He taught Robbie DJ Detail how to flare, and then he taught me how to flare. Robbie taught me how to flare, but Clever had taught Robbie how to flare. And back then, only like a couple hundred people knew how to flare. Now it's like thousands of people can flare, you know, and eventually it's going to be millions of people that can flare, you know. And right now, Russia, you know, like Chin Machine, Russia has some of the best DJs, just like some of the best gymnasts, some of the best, you know, piano players, things like that. And it's like, why is that? And it's like the parents are pushing the kids harder. I think that's what it is, you know, because I've taught people from around the world, and you know, I think they say that children can learn about 3,000 words between 0 and 3, and in Chinese, to be fluent, you got to know about 2,000 characters. So I just think just being forced to learn a bunch of characters is forcing kids to always be learning. And you know, our characters, you know, once they know the ABCs, it's like, hey, another characters. But it's deeper than that, you know, knowing different concepts and, you know, expanding vocabulary. But, you know, our whole school system is collapsing right now too, but it's more of a transition. Because anytime something's collapsing, you know, the school system is going online, you know. So I don't mean harsh words like that. I mean more like the school system is, you know, it's game over for writing on the chalkboard, you know. Because writing on the chalkboard, that's, you know, that's basically on a cave wall. You know, I'm not saying writing on the chalkboard is bad. You know, that's all you need, obviously. All you need is a piece of chalk and a wall. But, you know, I wasn't introduced to a lot of different instruments. You know, like I'm talking about mathematic instruments, like all the different, you know, I'm really into all the different, you know, rulers and protractors. And, you know, like I was talking about before, the BPM protractor that I'm dropping. I've been into, you know, all these different types of tools, and they never showed me that in science class. They never showed me what Mr. Wizard showed me. So I'm gonna be doing, you know, redoing like Mr. Wizard type of stuff. You know, I'm creating my own K through 12, even preschool, you know, rubrics and TTM systems. You know, so we're gonna be launching at TTM Kids actually in the future. You know. A whole nother channel, you know what I'm saying? Because this is a channel I have to, you know, expose stuff like, you know, that Bass Nectar thing. I can't really monetize that because, you know, Bass Nectar, it's just totally heinous. I can't even talk about Bass Nectar, you know. But yeah, you know, like if you go back in Europe and you talk about like rock groups and stuff like that, Bass Nectar is kind of like a new rock kind of idol, like one of the last ones. And you know, all that stuff was happening. What he's been doing, they were doing, the, you know, Rolling Stones, even David Bowie was doing it. You know, I met David Bowie. When you know, he booked my band Dragons of Zenith. You know, I was playing my Yamaha EZEG with a bunch of pads and like maybe a Korg, you know, some knobs and stuff, MIDI knobs added to it. I modified it so it had has a, what do you call it, a mouse, track mouse thing on it, and it's got you know, a bunch of different, add a bunch of knobs. It's only a matrix of like 6x12 buttons, and the guitar strings are just these short strings that you pluck it with, but the note playing hand is a bunch of buttons, a matrix of buttons. And I've been, you know, performing with that for years. And, you know, it's a very interesting thing, like with the rock stars, because, you know, in Russia, to bring it back to Russia, you know, they have these concerts. There's this concert, I believe, where like, just like with the Travis Scott thing, there was like a lot of, you know, carnage and pogrom and stuff. And, you know, like I was saying, my ex was saying that people were, you know, it's kind of lawless out there. She was just like, yeah, you can just do whatever you want, you know. It's just like, you know, people don't listen to the rules. It's, you know, that type of thing. It's kind of and their birth rate is going down. That's what I was saying. Nigeria is bigger than Russia now. You know, the birth rate is going down in Russia. So it's like, this seems like this might be it for Russia, you know. This is their last chance. They're like, you know, because Ukraine's population, I believe, is only like maybe 20% of Russia's. You know, Ukraine is actually really big, you know. And with the crypto stuff, we don't even know, you know, Russia might know that Ukraine is going to be bigger than them in the future as far as economically via the crypto stuff, you know, and they might be coming in right now with the crypto because crypto's at an all-time low, you know. this is a great time. This is a great time for them to come in. Russia might have been putting a lot of their money in crypto and might not have expected the 90% drops and things like that. So for all we know, Putin and them could have lost a bunch of money. And they're like, yo, let's go into Ukraine, grab all these, they're straight trying to, pull a jack move. So it's like, Russia, Europe's going to have to get into Russia. And obviously, I haven't heard France talking about it. But, I'll research that, what France and all these other countries feel, Germany, but UK is ready. UK is ready to take it all away, as far as Russia and, the Ukraine invasion. UK was saying really, really strong stuff. All the people that were, proposing their ideas, very, very serious stuff. So, we got to hope for peace, but obviously that region can't stop at peace, and people, Syria is still going, there's perpetual areas, and these areas do intersect with the Levant and the, home place of Homo sapien neanderthalis, not Homo sapien sapien. Homo sapien sapien is, is Eve, my L1 haplogroup is actually her, Bantu. You know what I'm saying? The genetic Eve. You know what I'm saying? But the L3 haplogroups were the people that L3 is what intersected with the Neanderthalis. And then everything after L3 started coming out. That's when the straight hair and the Dravidians arose. When humans and Homo sapiens sapiens and Homo Neanderthalis started mixing to create Dravidians, so it's like the straight hair trait crossed over, and the another trait that crossed over, they talk about diabetes, like I was saying that earlier. That's why I'm on a walk. People have like diabetes in my family. I just found out my aunt has diabetes, so I'm like, keeping fit, but a lot of obesity is a very big thing in my family, and most of the women in my family are dealing with obesity, and people have been mad at me for saying that, to my school. But we talk about health here too. I've been on the Sebi diet. I'm almost at 2 years. Around March 6th, I believe, I'll be 2 years without getting sick. Maybe March 9th is when I got sick 2 years ago in 2020. So I'm almost at 2 years without collecting mucus. I've had neck pains before within that 2 years, but not actual like mucus in my system. I try to stay as alkaline as possible. And yeah, because I've been vegan since 2007, but I've been alkaline since like maybe 2012. I've probably been on a Sebi diet since Sebi was alive, in 2012. And Sebi was real, Sebi would jump in, his method is purely heuristic, and the heuristic method. And shout out to DJ Chile for doing permutations of my work, my TTM, into his own heuristic methods of, games that he created and stuff like that. I'll show that picture. Shout out to DJ Chile, But yeah, Dr. Sebi took his own heuristic approach, and that. And, I think heuristic approaches are great, especially for like scientists and things like that, because, people can tell you this and all that. I was just listening to a lecture, and, most doctors don't know the person that actually discovered their drug that they prescribe every day, or, got the prize for it, or, when it happened. Like, they don't know any information about that. They just remember, like, hey, I'm this, I'm supposed to prescribe that. They can't even remember that. They don't know that information. You know what I'm saying? And that's deep. And like I was saying, Russia, they teach the, children better. So I would say a Russian troop is going to probably, be better at math than the average American troop. America, we don't really focus on math here. We focus on individualism and like confidence. I think that's what I've noticed, because when I go to Europe, they'll be like, oh, you're talking all loud. But, Atlanta, people will be talking loud and give like crazy hard handshakes, but I don't give, crazy hard handshakes. But people in Europe, I never get hard handshakes from Europeans or Africans. I get hard handshakes from cats, from where I'm from, America, cats would be like trying to give you a crazy hard handshake, or something like that. But yeah, I don't do that. But out there, I was just talking about Putin being and seeing Steven Seagal. Steven Seagal and Putin are homies, and the mafia kind of runs the kind of street out there. In the last lecture I was talking about Steven Seagal getting extorted by the mafia, and that whole thing, because that's why we need to end the Bloods and Cardi B and all that stuff on the radio. Any rapper affiliated with the real organized crime syndicate should be banned from the radio, and the radio should be banned from playing any songs that are related to them, because right now the Bloods run it. I'm sure Drake's a Blood, but we don't know. He's got that new song Gang with 21 Savage, who's got the knife on his forehead, and his brother just got stabbed by a knife and died in the UK, So, it's for a lot of places, because 40 people died so far. So people in Russia would look at it like, hey, it's only 40 people. That's normal, But, Biden was predicting like about, I believe, I remember 100,000 like a week ago. They were talking about 100,000 casualties in the war. But, we don't know what's really going on yet. But we do know Russia started it. And it's on now. So I would say, maybe I was talking with my wife about getting some canned food. This might be that time. They might have another month of like, hey, this is like that lock it down radiation month when that radiation from over by Pakistan and India just kind of clouds got everywhere and we had to stay inside for like 3 months. Fukushima's still leaking. What I realize is that, people diss sisters, but anywhere where there's not sisters working in some government department, things aren't stable. Like Chernobyl, they messed up, Russia messed up, everything is all male Euro there up in all their factories and facilities. So all their BS led up to a giant catastrophe that they could have never imagined. Or maybe they did imagine it, who knows, But I would suggest y'all check out the newest Kingsman. The newest Kingsman has, they talk about Franz Ferdinand, which is interesting because that's like one of the last rock groups. Rock died with Franz Ferdinand, but, and all that, early 2000s was the end of rock. Franz Ferdinand was one of the last people to rock. Like White Stripe era, that was like the last real rock era, But yeah, so definitely check out the new Kingsman. I think it's the third in the series, and this one is like set in the past, and it's based in the how the war with after King Ferdinand, how that started with World War I, I guess, and it's interesting to see their take because they had everybody in the fezzes, but nobody was black. They would make sure that they didn't show black people in fez, but they get to show European and Arab people in fezzes. And that's another thing as far as Hollywood. That's a big thing. You don't see that on TV. That's kind of not allowed. You know what I'm saying? Unless it's like the porch monkey kind of motif that they have always kind of put out, like the servant kind of motif, or even the genie. You know what I'm saying? Will Smith be the genie. I'll show the picture of that. This is going to have a lot of pictures. Ideally with my lectures, everything I say becomes a picture, but it becomes a thing about time. And do I have the time to put a picture for every single thing I'm mentioning? But, most of everything that I'm mentioning has, the picture that goes with it that I'm talking about, whether it's the graph or the study or the different thing like that. So I add as many of the pictures as I can, or have a picture that's overhanging that kind of goes with my main point or something like that. If I can't do that, so like, that lecture I did with Asir, I really went in and put pictures to what we were talking about, but I'm about to drop a lot more lectures. I got this lecture with Psy-Ops coming out, and I want to put a picture to every single thing, but, it's 3 hours long, our lecture, and, putting pictures to everything can take a very, very long time, because then you got to research the pictures, so it's like making a 3-hour documentary. So I'd prefer to make just like kind of maybe do that for half an hour, maybe half an hour of it, and the other 2 hours are more kind of podcasty, where I don't really add a lot of pictures, you know, because that takes time to be like, okay, there's, you know, to put that in there, you know, especially when, you know, sometimes I've got so many different like hard drives and stuff like that. It's like the pictures, like let's say I'm looking for a picture of Alexandria. Sometimes it's the libraries of Alexandria. It's easier to go onto Google and just type libraries of Alexandria than to actually like try to find that in my hard drive, you know. But yep. So you know, so my basic feeling about this whole war thing is, you know, I think the violence needs to end. But as we've seen with Dr. Phil Valentine's theory, you know, from the Levant to Portugal, you know, I was in Spain and sisters are doing very, very bad in Spain. You know, I was walking on the street with a sister, you know, with I believe my ex-fiance at the time, you know, and it was very, very deep because, you know, in Spain, when you go out on the street, the only sisters that were out walking around were, you know, working girls, you know, working women, you know, and it was very, very sad for me to see that in Spain. So I feel like Europe is kind of behind the U.S. as far as morality. I feel like, you know, there doesn't need to be brothels on every corner. You know, I definitely feel like that. So I feel like, you know, Europe definitely needs to, you know, become more like the U.S., you know, and imagine, like I was saying, imagine if Europe became like the U.S. or the world became like the U.S. It's like they have to evolve to that level. Like the right to bear arms and the way that we live in the U.S. is very, you have to have a lot of trust, you know what I'm saying? It's like, if they did that in China right now, it'd be a war probably, you know what I'm saying? Because people can't even handle that. So, you know, like I was saying, they might not be able to ever handle that. It might have to be that the West goes in there and fixes things. So they have to handle that, you know what I'm saying? They might have to, you know, westernize Russia and cut it up into smaller countries and cut up China into some smaller countries, you know what I'm saying? Because they're both tripping. Afghanistan too. You know, that whole landmass, that's pretty big landmass that's tripping, where people don't have the rights. You know, like I was just saying, they just found this woman that was chained up like an animal, you know, in China, and the government was backing the guy. He's on their big social media out there, like their TikTok. You know, they run TikTok, you know. I'd just say people in Europe, please, you know, be careful, because it's, you know, it might be time to get out. I was watching this documentary about this German woman that I believe she was one of the fastest runners in the world at the time, you know. And then when she found that the Nazi party had created or brought in a trans male that was acting like he was a woman to try to defeat her in running, when she found out that he was a man, she defected from the country, from Germany, and went to the UK, I believe. And then boom, then it started happening. That's when the gas chambers started happening, and she got out just in time. You know, that was the Olympics. She was like an Olympic runner. You know what I'm saying? So, man, it's a very, very serious thing. And it seems like we're in that type of time now. So I'll talk about this in the future. But, yeah, I'm done for today. All right. Peace.
The people in the city of Dnipro are now preparing for war.
The music of war. Bottles that once held beer or soft drinks being prepared as Molotov cocktails to throw at Russian tanks. People here call them Putin's smoothies.
And will you throw the Molotov cocktail yourself?
Yeah, I personally, yes. But my mother very against this, but
Your mother isn't very happy about that?
Of course.
So why will you do it if your mother says no?
Because...
It's emotional, especially for young people who just last week were thinking of maybe getting married or studying in Europe, having a normal life. Like 24-year-old Maria, hoping to succeed as an artist.
It's my country, it's my city, it's my people, and it hurts when another country try to throw it away from us. And I don't want to run, I don't scared, I feel only angry.
She might be at a jumble sale trying on a shirt for size, but it'll be torn up to use as a rag in a Molotov bottle, along with smashed up polystyrene, some of which came from the walls of the music studio that Maxime recently built.
Could you ever have imagined being in this situation?
No, but look, I must say that our generation, we were like smiling after we heard some war stories about the grandfathers that fight Nazism. Like it was like tales or something, and smiled. But now we are there. We are like our grandfathers.
So, is your generation up to it?
Yes, yes. And I must say the next thing. If Putin had thought that he can conquer us, he mistaken big time.
President Putin's pretense that he's defending Ukraine's Russian speakers has been turned on its head.
Nobody in Ukrainian won't speak Russian anymore, because this language is language of our enemy.
The people of Dnipro are collecting medical supplies and anything else that might be useful for the troops and volunteer defence forces. Water as well. The prospect of war has united this city, but the reality may yet spawn cruelty and division.
I'm Vladimir Klitschko, and I'm addressing the entire world to stop this war that Russia has started. You need to act now to stop Russian aggression with anything you can have now. In an hour, or by tomorrow is going to be too late.
Tower blocks and houses are being hit. This was a blood donor centre damaged by an attack. At least 4 civilians were killed in this strike in the northeast of the country. President Zelensky has likened it to genocide.
We have to call things by their names. The criminal acts of Russia against Ukraine bear signs of genocide. I talked about this with General Secretary of the UN. Russia is on a path towards evil. The world has to start depriving Russia of its right to vote in the UN Security Council.
And so, in the second city, Kharkiv, in Europe, in the 21st century, we have a children's hospital, filmed in recent days, moved to a bomb shelter. There's a mattress over there. Go to bed, she says. Shan't, says the child. Facilities in here range from the non-existent to primitive. Over the border in St. Petersburg, yesterday across Russia, it was around 3,000 people arrested for protesting against a war they say is Putin's, not theirs. Today, 900 more dragged and beaten into custody across 44 Russian cities. The latest figure, 4,124 detained. No to war, they chant. It will grow and grow unless the talks on which so very much depends can somehow deliver us.
Alex Thompson with that report. Well, we are reporting tonight from Ukraine's western capital, Lviv, or Lvov, or Lemberg, depending on which century you're in. This city epitomizes the fluid borders of a Middle Europe torn apart by the wars of the past. If Kyiv falls and if Ukraine is partitioned, this could become the capital of a free Ukraine, the West Berlin of the 21st century, if you like. Today, it is full of those fleeing the war and hoping to cross the border into nearby Poland.
There are many new human front lines in this war, and we went to see one of them, the Grand train station in Lviv, transit hub for desperate humanity, fleeing the fighting everywhere else in this country, in one direction, west. Everyone has a supercomputer in their hand, but it can't spirit you away from here. So your husband will stay here?
Yeah, he will stay here and
Why?
go to
fight?
fight, yeah.
He will stay here to fight?
Yeah.
And you will go with your daughter?
Yeah, to the Poland.
What have you left behind? What was your existence before?
Like all of my life. I left behind all of my plan to my life. So I will build my life again, like from zero.
One step at a time. Next, platform 3, waiting for the 11:45 to Poland. One-way tickets only. The journey from citizen to refugee. From sanity to insanity. And all this is on you, Vladimir Putin. If these images were in black and white, you'd say this is a typical refugee scene from the Second World War. But it's in color, and it's happening here in the year 2022, in the heart of Europe.
And when all the time my colleagues were worried, international colleagues, about me and asking, maybe you should not go to Ukraine, something can happen, I was, no guys, this is not possible. We are in 21st century in the middle of Europe, nothing like this can happen.
And now it has.
And it has, and I'm now not that positive anymore. Same was my approach in the first 2 days, like, okay, I wait, this will be stopped by European Union shortly. This cannot last long. Few days later, I think maybe I'm too positive again, and maybe I should go.
And here's why. Crossfire on the streets of the capital. No one wants to be caught up in this. Or the oil depot on the outskirts of Kyiv, now a ball of fire spewing toxic fumes. Depriving the Ukrainians of fuel is essential if Moscow wants to conquer a city showing remarkable resilience. Before we left Kyiv, we bumped into Sviatoslav Jurash, Ukraine's youngest member of parliament, with the latest must-have accessory.
They were essentially giving us the guns, option to have the guns if we want to protect ourselves.
And what kind of gun is it?
That's AKM-74.
Have you used it before?
I had some run-ins, but I'm not exactly experienced. But this is a skill you learn fast when you need to protect your life.
Is there a danger with so many civilians, untrained civilians like you having guns?
There's so many dangers, so many Russians having guns and trying to kill those civilians.
This war is a steep learning curve for everyone. First, Poland. They've welcomed all refugees from Ukraine with open arms. But in this instance, it appears that isn't the case if you're black. These were African students stuck at the border, forbidden by the Polish police and army to cross over. But also a learning curve for Germany. Here, a standing ovation for the Ukrainian ambassador in Berlin. The masks, a reminder that calamities travel in packs these days.
We want peace, no war.
After weeks of criticism from its allies and domestic pressure in the form of huge anti-Putin demonstrations, Germany isn't just sending arms to Ukraine, it is also increasing its spending to have the biggest military budget in Europe. The country has finally found a way of stepping over the long shadow of its history. Germany rearms, Europe relieved. There's another headline you didn't see coming.
And Poland has denied that any black refugees have been barred from entering the country at its border with Ukraine. As we were reporting, social media footage has emerged appearing to show groups of black refugees, many of them students, gathered close to where we are now, with some claiming that they have been refused entry for days because of the colour of their skin. The Office of Poland's Prime Minister this afternoon tweeted, "There is no discrimination." Meanwhile, Nigeria's Foreign Minister has tweeted that he raised the issue with his Ukrainian counterpart and was told that Ukraine's border forces had been directed to allow all foreigners to leave.
In Russia, protesters again took to the streets across the country. Those who see through the propaganda and know this war is wrong, and who aren't deterred by the inevitable arrests. Nuclear forces on high alert, Ukraine's cities under attack, and this kind of a crackdown back home. It is a hard sell even to his own people that this is all in the name of Russia's defense. They don't know why their president is doing this, and the West doesn't either, which makes planning a response to what is now a nuclear threat that much harder. Diana Magnay, Sky News, Moscow.